So feel free to ask. So feel free to ask questions at any point. Like there's no such thing as interrupting a talk. And I will be sharing my screen. Let me know once you guys can see it. Just give me a thumbs up or anything if you guys can see it. And Justice and Himanshu will be monitoring the chat as well. So if you guys have any questions, just put them in the chat itself if you are too shy to talk. Okay, I guess we'll just zoom in our screen because it doesn't want to present. One second. Justice, is it possible for you to share your screen?
Yeah, let me try that.
Okay, I'll pause my share.
One second. One second.
Yeah, no worries. So while we're waiting for Justice to share his screen, let me tell you guys a little bit about ourselves. So we are a group called Global Shapers. We are a World Economic Forum initiative of youth in their 20s who mobilize in their local community to make change happen. As you are about to experience, this resume workshop is one of our projects. Justice has been leading this for the past few months, where every 2 weeks we meet and review people's resumes and help them in any way they want, because a lot of us have not only done interviews at some of the FANG companies, but now are interviewing other folks as well. So this whole meeting or session is all about you guys and how, like, equipping you either with tips when you guys are applying for jobs, or if you have an amazing idea during this hackathon and you want to bring it to fruition, we'll give you a framework for that as well. So without any further ado, let's go to the next slide. So Justice is also going to post a link where you guys can submit your resumes, because at the end of this meeting, we're going to be um, reviewing a bunch of resumes and giving you one-on-one feedback. Anyway, so agenda, as I mentioned, first we'll talk about starting your own company, because we are at a hackathon. What other way to engage, like how to bring your idea to fruition. Second is, how do you find a corporate job, where do you get started? And then third is, how do you interview and contribute to open source, because this whole hackathon is all around open source. Do you guys have any questions so far? I know we had a little bit of a rough start, but how's everybody doing today morning? Just in a chat, in one word, how's everybody
Doing
doing?
great. Doing great.
Ah, thank you. Love
Yes.
it.
It's a
Awesome.
sunny weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I'm actually currently visiting India, so it's like 10 p.m. for me. So, what? Yeah, I see mostly a lot of awesome and good and all right. I hope by the end of this session, you guys are all doing great and ready to attack the tech scene. Anyways, ooh, somebody's in Saudi Arabia. That's so cool. Nice. Okay, next. Okay, so the first part, as I mentioned, is starting your own company. Next. So, does anybody watch the show called Silicon Valley? Just give me a thumbs up or a yes or anything.
I watch it. I watched the
Yeah.
entire thing. I watched the entire thing. It's pretty cool.
Nice. So basically, when I didn't know how to get started and I really wasn't sure what to do while I was at Dienza, I attended a bunch of events. Like if there was an event happening, I would go attend. And I met a lot of cool people. Like the first two are the cast of Silicon Valley. The third person built their own solar airplane and flew around the world. Next slide, please. Then I met the co-founder of Yahoo from Shark Tank, Damon John, Steve Blank, the founder of Google Car. Had a great conversation with him. Keep going. I even met Satya Nadella, CEO of Workforce, Mark Benioff's mom. Keep going. I met Twitter's founder, Jack Dorsey. I met Box founder. I went on a walk with Mark Zuckerberg. But one thing I realized is all of these are vanity sorry, go back. It's so hard to not control your own presentation.
My
um,
apologies.
no, all good. Anyway, so these are all vanity metrics. It was really cool for me to meet all these people and learn from them. But like literally, I gained nothing back. And it took me attending a lot of events to understand this. So, one takeaway, if at all, you get from this talk is please, 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 if you are wasting your time doing anything, make sure you're getting enough things back. So to give you another example, next slide. These are the four people who really like were trajectory, like increased my trajectory after I met them. So first one is the CEO of Cloudera. I sneaked in backstage, met with him, and he mentioned me during his keynote at a 50,000 people conference. Like that was amazing because I had it on video. I used the shit out of it on my website afterwards, and I got a lot of credibility during the conference as well, which made a lot of other meetings that were scheduled easier. Second, I met Guy Kawasaki, amazing guy. We had just attended like a event where Obama was going to speak, and we were walking from location A to B. We had over 30 minutes of amazing conversation where he gave me actionable feedback, and just learning from people like that was amazing. Third is Phil Libin. He is the CEO of Evernote, and he's doing amazing things now with his own fund as well. But I actually just approached him at a conference and asked him if he would be down to give me feedback on my startup, and he agreed immediately. We met for lunch, and that was one of the best feedback sessions I ever had. So don't be afraid to ask. You never know what you will get. Last is Michael Seibel. He's the CEO of Y Combinator. We went through YC in 2016, and he ended up investing in our company. So really, it's amazing to meet a lot of cool people, but make sure that you have a very specific ask. Any questions so far? You
Yeah,
guys
I
are
had a
all hanging.
question. Yeah,
Yeah, go for it.
yes, I'm curious, like, how did you come about all of these different events? Like, how did you like know about them or seek them out and get involved?
Yeah, I think it just starts with going to one or two events like GES and CES, those kind of events. I started going to those events and then started getting invited to a lot of different specific parties. And I also, I'm going to talk about how I did targeted networking in the next slide. So a lot of the meetings I've been to are invite only meetings, but because of the way I networked, it helped as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Next slide, please. So, as somebody just asked the question, how did I end up at these events? So, these are three different kind of conversations that I would say about targeted exposure. And not only does it apply when you are doing your own company, like whenever you're going for jobs or starting your own thing, network is one of the biggest things that you will ever, like, that's the most valuable thing you will ever make. So spend that time reaching out to people. We got into Y Combinator, which is an incubator. I know I keep mentioning it, but it's one of the best incubators for growth stage companies. And we got in because of a Snapchat pitch that I sent. So Justin Khan, the founder of Twitch, and a bunch of other companies, like was doing, like, it was very active on Snapchat at that point. So I literally just sent him our pitch in a Snapchat form, and he was like, why don't you apply? He ended up being our, like, one of the judges doing our 10-minute interview, and also became our mentor once we were in the batch. Second is, I literally ran into somebody while walking at California Avenue in Palo Alto, and I recognized her name, her face, and I just approached her, and we had an amazing meeting afterwards, after this by chance encounter on the street. So only in Silicon Valley can something like this happen. And the last is, so you need to know who is part of your circle that will help you reach the next level, and you need to keep close tracks on those people. Not that I followed her to California Avenue. I'm just saying that you need to make sure you know who to network with, uh, like who might help you, who fits your profile properly, things like that. For me, she wasn't, her startup is very close to what Confluent is doing. So it was very meaningful for me to connect and get her advice, because of other reasons. Anyways, without blabbering on it, let's go to the third example. This one is whenever I go to any event. Oh, sorry, not, yeah. So if whenever I go to any event, I message every single speaker who is coming to that event. These are all cold messages on LinkedIn, and it describes a very brief thing about my startup and my ask. So I have had over 90% of success rate. Like 90% of the times when I send these cold messages, people respond. But this was one of the fastest responses I've ever received. Like within 1 hour, we actually had a meeting scheduled, and we did end up meeting up. He's still part of my core group of mentors, and to this day, he responds super fast to any of my work emergencies. So you never know when and where you will find someone who will become a long-term mentor, employee, or even just somebody who can guide you in as you look for jobs or grow within your startup or company. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you have like a specific ask for like if you run into people or if you're reaching out to people. How do you come up with like a specific ask? Especially like if I'm not like starting a startup, like I still don't
Right.
know what I should be asking. How do I think of that question?
Perfect. That's my next slide. So I'll keep going and I'll make sure I answer that question. Just this next slide. So now you meetings. What do you talk about? How do you come up with content, right? So next, you need something to talk about. Next, a hypothesis. So usually when you are in a startup form, you have a hair burning problem statement or something which you need clarification on. But if you're looking for a job or something like that, that's your problem statement. So even if you're not working on a startup or don't have a specific ask, you can still be like, I just need some guidance about how to interview for X, or I just want to learn more about how your company is addressing Y, and I like, what is your stance on this technology, what skills should I be building. It doesn't have to be anything like, really deep or dense. The only goal with this hypothesis is, first you're trying to get a meeting. Once you have a meeting, you're trying to get the next meeting. The more touch points you have, the important, like, that's the only important part. So startup or not, you are just trying to engage that person and have them be invested in you and build that relationship. Did that answer your question? I
Yes,
think it
that's
was
it.
Saskia. Okay, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So next slide, Justice. Okay, so I know I have already crossed over my allotted time, so I'll make it fast a little bit. But this was my pitch during my previous company, where, whenever I used to meet anybody, this was the one liner that I used to say. So even if you are selling for yourself, you should figure out what is that one line that is super attractive, and tells exactly what you do. For example, for Replenish, ours was each ambulance run is 2 hours long. 40 minutes is spent on paperwork. We reduced the 40 minutes to 4 minutes. So it's an elevator pitch. People know exactly what we are doing, and they can now ask follow-up questions. So it has to be precise. It has to be super simple. Don't get too complicated. You can be, I'm a student at this college doing X, interested in Y, right? That's it. So then that will give people talking points. Next slide. So now that you have a problem statement, you're always doing customer development. Customer development could be like your mentor. You can replace customer development to mentor advice. You are asking a lot of open-ended questions to them to really understand what about the industry do they understand that you don't understand. If you're thinking of it from a startup perspective, you're trying to understand what their day-to-day activities looks like. So you can make a solution that makes the most difficult part of their day easy. So always ask open-ended questions. And one of my favorite questions to ask is, if you had a magic wand, what is one thing that you would change about the operations of your company? So a lot of the features that we built at Replenish, we found the answers in this one magical question. So even if you are talking to a mentor and you need to learn like what new skills you should develop, things like that, ask this question. You never know what you will find out. And always take notes. Like you never know what thing they might say that might become relevant later on. And active listening. Like if they are talking, you are not talking at all. Try to really understand what they're trying to say. Next slide. And any questions? Okay. So this picture is actually taken on New Year's Eve. I was at Times Square for the ball drop, but at that time I was working on another company called Replenish, which was in ambulance compliance space. So while waiting for the ball to drop, I was talking to a bunch of firefighters and paramedics to understand how New York does their paperwork. So there's no wrong time to start networking. Always be talking to customers or mentors or whoever. Like if you are super interested in a field, don't shy away from just approaching them and talking to people. Next. So now first we networked, then we got a meeting. From the meeting we had an insight, either customer insight or industry insight, depending on if you're applying for a job or working on your own startup. What is next? Next slide. So next is team. You need to be very perseverance is one of the most important things. Not all things are going to go your way. You might apply to 30, 40 jobs and hear a constant no. If you are a startup founder, you might talk to hundreds of VCs and they will all say no. But remember, you just need one person to say yes. So perseverance, determination, and passion are some of the biggest qualities that a founder can have. And you want to be enterprising at all, like whatever way you pick your either as a startup founder or as an employee, you always need to be enterprising to grow within the company. uh, so passion is very important. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you are not going to go above and beyond to make things happen. And resourcefulness, not always will you have the most amount of money to do anything. So you have to figure out what is the least amount of things I can do to get the most impact. And clear communication, right? and you need to have a presence. Like you need to be confident, and you need to be confident in yourself that whatever you're saying, people are interested in listening to you, and like this is beneficial. And decisiveness, because you will have to make so many split second decisions, and they might make or break your company, right? But you have to be confident that whatever you pick, you will see that through. Any next slide? Any questions so far?
Excuse me? I
Yeah,
have a question. So you
yeah, go
just
for it.
mentioned that sometimes you have to make split-second decisions. Do you have an example of that?
Yeah. So there are many like second decisions that I've made. For example, even applying to the incubator Y Combinator, I was at a conference, South by Southwest, and somebody just told me that why don't you apply? The deadline is today evening. So literally that after that person said it, I trusted them so much. I applied to YC within the next few hours, filled out the application, and we got in, and that was one of the best things that I ever did. So I could have just said I'll apply to next cycle, or me and my co-founder are not in the same city right now, so it might be hard for us to do things like that. But so that was one. If you're looking for customer side, like we were our first customer was in Boston, but initially, I'm talking about my previous company right now, Replenish, and uh, they were like, they just told us that why don't we schedule a meeting, and I was like, can we meet in person? And before they responded yes, I had already booked my tickets, and it was amazing for us to meet in person, because they were like, okay, give us the tablets if you have it ready right now, we will just try it starting tomorrow. So you really do have to trust your judgment and go for it. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so what is missing? Intelligence and expertise. I do not think that like if I think grit is way more important than intelligence and expertise. These are the things that you can get from outside, but it is execution that is the most important quality of a founder. Okay, next slide, please.
A quick question on that last slide.
Yeah,
Just for clarification, by intelligence, you mean like how smart we are, or like
exactly.
information?
I mean, you definitely need a customer insight. You need to know your customer inside out. By intelligence, I mean like you don't need to have a PhD to start a company. Yeah. Next slide. So now we have a customer insight and a great team. Now what? Next. Sorry, Justice. So now you need to actually build a product. See how many things we have done without even building the product. So for product, you need to have an MVP. What is the smallest thing that you can build that will prove the assumption that you have? You initially do things that do not scale, and like build only things that the customers ask for. And if you're looking for something around the product management role, this also applies to you, because you need to be seriously in tune with your customers and make sure that whatever projects or features you're building, you are actually in touch with your customers. It doesn't matter if you're a startup or in a corporate job. Like I cannot emphasize how important it is. Like literally, please go out of your way to talk to one of the customers, and just understand how whatever product either you are helping build or are building is being used by the end user. Even if you are in the computer science field, I think it's really important for engineers to talk to customers. I made my whole team fly to Boston and see how our product was being used, just FYI. Okay, next slide, please. So now we're going to speed through this. If you have any questions, just interrupt. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. We had an Excel spreadsheet going. So whatever our teammates saw, like we all input it in this Excel spreadsheet and where we saw it. Next. So now you have a product, now you need to go to market. So you only have one target market, and you need to figure out how you will make money, and always build things customers ask for, give it to them, make sure that they are happy with it, and do multiple releases. There, you don't have to release a perfect product in the first time. You can iterate based on customer feedback. So make small things, try it out. If it's working, don't change it. If it's not working, figure out why. Next. So what resources do you need to go to market? This is very much a startup thing now, but you need branding and identity. You need to fundraise, and you need to figure out what is that feedback loop in which people will give you feedback. That is one of the first things I would figure out, like how can I have a direct communication with my customer? Next. Once you have launched a product or your feature is live with the consumers, you need a metric. You need to make sure that what you have given is. So for that, for B2B companies, it could be revenues, contracts, sale funnels, things like that. Or for B2C, business to consumer, daily active users, or how many people are buying certain products within your game, etc. Any questions so far? I know I'm like zooming through all of this. I want to give Justice and Himanshu enough time. Okay, keep going. Next. Again, nothing fancy. We had, this is an example of our first ever sales funnel, another Excel spreadsheet. Next. Okay, so now you first talk to customers and like first you network, then you figured out a hair burning problem, then you released a product, had a great team, you tracked the metric, and now you have the product market fit, and you need to grow your company or grow the amount of people using your product. So you need to make a small group of people happy first, and never lose momentum. Momentum is so important when working in a team setting. Like motivation, culture play a very important role into how successful a company will be. So I already mentioned this, but if something is working, keep going. Like I cannot emphasize it that point enough. And how things will run at 10x your current level. So if you are at level X, how what will you be at level 10x? What resources you will need? That's all the planning that you need to do. Next slide. I think we are almost to the end. Last one slide to go. Yep. So overall lessons, put yourself out there. College students, like you have the best excuse to learn. I started my first company when I was like towards the end of my Dianza chapter. And like literally, I used to walk up to ambulances and just ambulance companies and ask them that I'm a student doing a research project. Could you spare 15 minutes? That's the best excuse and the easiest way to learn anything about your consumers. So you are really at a very advantageous position. So put yourself out there, and like you don't have any responsibilities right now. And you know everything is online. So literally please put yourself out there and keep talking to people. As I said, doesn't matter like if you have an idea or not. It's all about growing your network in a very targeted way. So figure out what you're interested in and keep talking to people. You never know when and where what will click. So with that, I'm going to hand off to Himanshu and Justice, who are going to talk about like very much from the corporate side of things. I focused a lot on the startup side. And as we mentioned, please keep submitting your resumes on the link Himanshu provided in the chat, because there's going to be a resume review workshop after the end of this conversation. Any questions before I hand it off to others?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome.
Thanks, Nipper. That was nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was really helpful, really insightful. I do have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so you mentioned like we should ask people about like what is one thing that you would change about operations in your company. I
Right.
would like to ask you that question, like just in general, like everything you've been through, like what is one thing that you would like to change about? It can be your company or just like how you've gone by through this whole journey.
Oh my God, you're putting me on spot. No, I think one thing that I would change about my company right now. So this is a very technical question, but one of the things that we are working on is making our solution a lot more universal. So one of the problems we identified is every new chip manufacturer we work with, there's some customization required. So I would try to find a way to automate that process of making customizations. It's very focused and narrow, but that's the current thing that I'm dealing with. But great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Off to Justice and Himanshu.
All right. Okay. Oh, I think it's your slide, Nupur, there, or
Yeah. These are just frameworks for you guys as you are working through your hackathon. If you need any, um, just yeah, there are two slides, two formats for you to identify how to pitch your idea or a startup. It has to fit all of this. This is a summary of my whole presentation, basically. But yeah, keep at it, Himanshu.
all right. So this part will be about nailing the corporate job. Next slide, Justice. So the first lesson here is to be as proactive as humanly possible. So add all the people in the companies that you care about. So Tesla or Oracle or Microsoft, add the folks in HR, add the PMs, add the managers, add the engineers. So, research about the latest products coming out or the latest things that a team is doing. And if possible, a network with them, say, how's it, like ask about the latest like a product that came out, and also share a resume with that too, like if it's relevant, but don't spam, but still like reach out to as many people as you can on LinkedIn. So I think LinkedIn presence, like especially in times of COVID, is like really like important to network with as many like people as you can. In my case, almost all the jobs I ever found was through LinkedIn. So I messaged the managers, the HR team, and I sent them, like things I was enthusiastic about, and even passed on a resume. So basically, the network as much as possible. And in one case, like I even found a job through a hackathon that I went to, and a person was a founder, and his other like a colleague hired me, uh, at his own company. So be as proactive as possible. Message LinkedIn, go to hackathons as you're doing right now, and just network. Next slide. So making the hackathon count. So if you don't have any experience, just be confident, like in the skills, and try to contribute to open source stuff on GitHub. So basically, so try to find any open source repos that you can contribute to, or start your own as well. And as for a LinkedIn, just make sure that you have an active LinkedIn presence, make sure that it's filled out, have a picture, have actual bullet points for your jobs and things that you have worked on, and most importantly, the actual like impact that that you had in your previous role or previous job or previous internship or project, or just about like anything that you did. List it out, make sure it's full and it has a substance to it, and 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 again, make sure that you network like with other hackathon members if possible, and there's a good chance, like me, that you'll find your next job from someone that you meet here. Next. Next slide, Justice. Sure. So this is about job hunting. So on the left, you can see that I messaged someone on LinkedIn and they just set up an interview for me. So in this case, so add ton of HR people, keep posting on LinkedIn about your projects, your updates, so that all the people that you added see that you're up to some really cool stuff. And also ask for your, like ask for intros from your colleagues, your profs, and they will help you out, like for sure. And then like the last sort of like resort is to like apply for jobs on LinkedIn or on Indeed, but the best chance is through your own network or through LinkedIn. Next slide. So for resumes, so I think the most like important points here are to keep it clean, simple, upbeat, and have all the things listed out as shown. So show your relevant skill set, relevant projects. Don't have one resume that you use for all the jobs. Make sure that's a bit customized, and you change the skill set that is relevant to the job and the projects that is relevant to the job, and not a random spammy resume that you just blast to all. And the most I think important thing here is to highlight the actual impact that you had at your projects, your previous internships or jobs or whatever thing that you did. And also sometimes, like I've noticed that a ton of HR folks tend to pattern match. So make sure that you have the right keywords in your actual resume, so that like they can like essentially have a quick brief look through and say, hey, the words in my head match the words in the resume. There's small chance that this person I guess quite relevant. So make sure that you do all that. And on the right, you can see all the relevant sections there. So a technical summary is quite important. The projects that you took on, your experience, and then lastly, some activities that you did that are relevant to this. So in this case, you can put in hackathon participant, or you build something, at a hackathon. So mention all these things in the resume as well. Next slide. So to prep for interviews, of course, like you might have heard of HackerRank or LeetCode. So make sure you go and try the coding challenges in there, and try to be and try to find friends, colleagues to do some mock interviews, talk to actual engineers at the company, if you know any, to ask what sort of questions they might ask. And sometimes those questions are on glass door as well. So try to find all the questions that you might be asked. And also, as for the questions that you might ask, like check on the company's site, see what they're working on, like anticipate what challenges that they might be facing with the product, and ask questions about that. And also make sure that you know which company is right for you based on your own resume or your, or your passion. So make sure that's a good match. Else it's, like I think, like it just comes out in an interview, like your actual enthusiasm and your passion for the company. Next slide. Okay, Justice, you wanna take this?
Yeah, thanks, Himanshu, and thanks everyone for staying with us so far. The meeting has been going on for an hour already, so I think it's a good time for us to take a break, take a walk, get you some water and drink, and then we can go through the last slide in 2 minutes. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Sure. And if anybody has any questions for Himanshu, feel free to ask those questions now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question about like having the right keywords according to the niche in your resume. Is it like a skill, or like do you have any examples for specific industries?
Sure. Say for instance, like in case of say like mechatronics, they'll want you like to have experience with a certain instrument or a sensor or something else. In case of like say a CS, it's a language. So perhaps like they want you to know like a certain tech stack. So basically have that thing mentioned in your resume. I think that is quite like a critical, like a tech stack that matches with the tech stack that the company has internally as well.
I see. All right, thank you.
All right, I think it's been 2 minutes, so we'll continue. I'll talk about contributing to open source. It's something that I do and love to do, and something that I find very, very beneficial. So, contributing to open source does not mean you don't get to start your own startup or land a corporate job. In fact, it can help you do both. Sometimes when you don't have your own breakthrough idea, or you haven't landed that dream corporate job, open source is a different way to reach out or to showcase what you are, what you can bring to the table. So because people are usually reluctant to do this, I try to make a case for why you should care. It's not because we don't know about it; it's just because most of the time we deprioritize it. We want to work on our own ideas and do other things more than we want to contribute to open source. But when you do contribute to open source, one, you would improve your technical skills. When you are working on your own project, you use the skills that you know. You don't care about the skills that are relevant. Open source projects tend to, when you work on an open source project, you have to work under someone else's constraints. And that forces you to learn or hone those skills. If you are working on your own project, you may likely have some issues that you push aside, but you're not likely to. An open source maintainer is not likely to let you write buggy code and submit it, but you do that for your own project. So it does help a lot with improving your technical skills. A second one is improving the software that you use. Many of us, I don't know about you, but I used to do this a lot. You find a project you like, it's missing one feature that you need. So you fork the project, and then you have your own GitHub repo for that project, add your own changes there, and then and that's it. A better approach that I would suggest is make the change to the project, the upstream project. as opposed to creating a fork of the project that just benefits you. You can benefit a lot more people by attempting to improve the source or the main repo, the upstream project. It doesn't only, boost your GitHub credo. It also improves that software for everyone. And there's some, there's a good feeling to using a software you improved on. You get to know the internals of that software a lot more, and you can do a lot more with it. One more thing, one more benefit that I derive from working on open source is meeting new people. We talk about networking, and for many, networking can be hard. Like cold call emails, while they are important, can be hard to write and to click the send button. A GitHub pull request is like a cold call email, but it's in a good way. It's like, hey, I'm trying to help you. Look what I built for you. Do you like it? And the person on the receiving side might be like, oh, that's nice of you. I really appreciate it. I've actually been wanting to fix this issue for the longest time, but I haven't got the time to do that. And that's it. We already have some communication going there. But along the lines of teamwork as well, you meet not just people that are as nice as I described, but people that aren't as nice. And you try to navigate the complexities of this team environment, which I believe helps you a lot when you start your own project or when you decide to join a corporate entity. The same teamwork skills you build carries over. I contributed to several open source projects, and one of the biggest things that I got from that was review. When I wrote code for me, my personal projects or the clients that I worked with when I was in college, nobody reviewed my code. So it was correct by default. My code was correct by default, unless it was code that was graded and then there's a rubric and then the professor will see a bad grade. But with a review, you get to see what it's like, what other people on a team think of your work and how you can get better. That is really valuable information. And then there are other subtle benefits, which is you feel good about yourself. It's like caring about the environment, picking up some dirt on the road, helping out a stranded kid. Open source, while it may not look like that at first because it's digital, it powers a lot of the internet as we see it today. The Linux, which OS, which a lot of people, including me, use currently, is a gigantic open source software. A lot of the back end of the internet is open source. So when you do that, you make the internet and perhaps by extension the world in general around you better for you. One more thing is that recruiters look at GitHub pages. If if you're a CS major or software engineering major, many people argue that a link to your GitHub profile is way better than your LinkedIn, than your resume or your LinkedIn. Some people argue that. I wouldn't say that is entirely true, but if you do have a strong track of open source contributions, you don't have to make a case for I can write code. They see it. It's like you don't have to pitch it. They just give them and just show them, and that is really strong. And then there's the innovation that you get that you can foster if you try to do open source and do it right with the team. It's easier for you to recruit more people when you are popular on GitHub. When you start a new project, more people want to work on your project. They want to help you accelerate progress as fast as possible. Any questions so far? Okay. Now you somewhat care about open source. I assume you somewhat care about open source, but most people don't know where to begin, right? Here's my big suggestion, because like you go into the code base, it doesn't make any sense. That's how it's going to feel. If you go to the Linux Foundation code base, it doesn't make any sense. Mozilla doesn't. It's like boom. Start by finding typos and correcting them in readmes and code. That is the easiest thing. As far as GitHub is concerned, any activity you do on GitHub counts as an open source contribution, and not just GitHub, but even improving the documentation for other people, or translating the documentation in other languages, or fixing formatting issues, making the document look better, improves the code for everybody. And it could be in readmes, or it could be in actual source code. As you're reviewing the code, you see something that doesn't look right or doesn't look organized, you can just organize it. It doesn't have to be big. That's the point. It really can start from fixing documentations. Even at work here, sometimes when I'm trying to understand a team's work, it's good to start with those little things. It will help you do the review, go through an entire review process without having to worry about, is my code correct and bug free, because documentation is easy. But at least you know who the maintainer is, you know what things they expect, you know what the team's conduct is. It's a good place to start. Just look at the documentation. Most of them have bad documentation anyway to start with. Once you have done a few documentation, it's a good time to start, filing bugs or commenting on bugs. You see a bug, you may not have encountered it, but you may have an opinion, on the bug. That's a good time to start. That's a good way to start interfacing with the team members or existing contributors on the project. It will give you idea for what areas of the software need work. If you can't find work yourself on that project, if you go through the bugs list and and conversations that are there, contributing to them and talking with people gives you that idea. And if you actually use the software yourself, then filing new bugs is a good way to get other people to chime in. Like, hey, is this priority? Is this not? Is this really a bug or not a bug? Before you spend a lot of time trying to fix that bug, and then getting a pushback. And then once you have actually filed a bug and there's a conversation around it, you usually would start to get an idea for what the solution would look like based on the comments. You start to get an idea for what the solution would look like. And if you're not still sure what the solution would look like, you can ask directly, and people would usually chime in. And by the time you're done with this long conversation, you kind of have an idea what line by line you're going to write, if that wasn't obvious or clear earlier. And now you can write this feature and push it upstream. And you see, it just starts with really, really little things. It starts with just a small documentation change you make, and you get a lot of feedback and know who is who on the project, and to commenting on bugs, to like filing your own bugs, and then to adding a feature upstream. And once you add that first feature, it becomes easy. You get that badge of honor, where you are on the contributor thing, and you feel better about doing it more often. And sometimes you wonder, which projects do I even start with? I would suggest to start with the projects you are already using, the projects you depend on already. If you're active on GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, or you would usually there are already open source projects you depend on. You import them, whether it's on NPM from somewhere, and then you notice an issue with this project. Start with them. Picking up random projects to work on can be a lot. There's less motivation to find a random but popular project to contribute to, and there's a lot of reward in improving what you already use. So that's my biggest recommendation. Find ones you already use. Go through the ones you're already using or depend on, and go to the open source pages and see how you can apply these steps to contribute to them. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I had a question. I'm kind of curious. So this is my first hackathon. So I'm wondering, like, what's a good volume or a good percentage of time to allocate to contributing to open source, or like how many, like what frequency, I guess, makes sense.
So most people recommend 20%. I also recommend 20%. Most I think it's 20% because most companies in the Bay Area would give you 20% of your time towards courses you care about. And this means that for 20% of the time, if the work you're already doing 100% is not open source, you can contribute to those courses. A different way to look at it is to make something you're already working on an open source project. So time that you spend working on this project you are already using counts towards open source contributions. Point is, when you leave school or when you leave work, switch jobs, all the work you did for that company or school is not visible to external recruiters. They can't see that he has improved this much because they can't access the code. They are taking your word for it, and that is where the risk is. That is why interviews are hard and etc. etc. Um, but when they can see the work you've done, when they can see the work you've done and they can vouch for it, then there really isn't. Your degree is just a secondary consideration. A secondary consideration.
Thank you.
Any other questions about contributing to open source, or why you should, or how you should start? All right. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for staying with us for the past hour and plus. So we do have time, so we'll be here online for another hour or so, and we would like to offer you a resume review. Resumes are your first step in the door. It's the first foot you put in the door. Your resumes speak for you when you're not there. Some people, when they are going to a job interview or speaking to an investor or going to an important conference, will dress up, put their hair all right, get their shoes straight, get their ties up. But when they submit their resume, which is really really them, in a crowd of thousands and perhaps even millions of applicants in some cases, your resume is not dressed up. It has an untidy hair. It's not even wearing any shirt. And they don't realize this. They don't realize this. The resumes get you through the door, which is why a lot of people invest a lot of time, there. If you don't get through the door, you don't know what the interview process is like, right? You don't know what the interview process is like. Like someone mentioned that I'm a software engineer at Google. I didn't get my software engineering job at Google the first time I tried. I got it the second time I tried, right? So there was the first time you try, you get in the door, you get a feel for it, and then you didn't do well, you get the sorry, but you should try next time. But you learn from it, and then you can try another time. When you don't have a good resume, you don't even get that first shot. The first shot for maybe we should consider this guy. And then they discover, oh, well, it's not as good as we think. And then you learn from what they tell you, and then you apply that to another company, and then you hit it. So I'll give people a few minutes to visit the link here. I'll try to paste it in the chat. I can't actually paste. If someone can help me paste the link again, I would really appreciate it. And then I'll be back. I'll be back here sharing some tips on how to go about making sure that your resume shows up like polished, buttoned up, and making sure. In the meantime, accepting patience too.
Wow, thank you so much, Justice, Himanshu, and Nupur. These were amazing presentations. Just for everyone over here, these sessions are being recorded, so you can always go back and refer to them. Yeah, so that's it from my side, and we can continue with the workshop.
Just a show of hands, how many people actually have their resume right now?
I can see resumes coming into the form actually. Um, so what we're going to do is we're going to have sessions, very, very quick sessions, where we pair where we pair ourselves. You get paired with somebody for a very quick feedback, and then we come back and then switch around like that. If a lot more people join, what I'm going to do is give a talk on actually how to, like, I think we mentioned this earlier, but I would like to walk you all through how to button your resume up, how to do it the easy way. When people think about writing their resume, they get stressed about it. They get very stressed about it. I get stressed about writing resumes when I did. So I have strategies that I have developed that helps me with writing, updating my resume, and or helping other people with their resumes as well. And I will share that with you. Okay. Um, let's give it like 2 more minutes. And then we start. Okay, we will be closing the receipt for the resume soon. If you don't, if for those that have submitted the resumes, we are going to have a breakout rooms very soon. And if you are not submitting a resume or participating in the review, this is the end of the workshop, and you may feel free to have a good rest of your day. Otherwise, yeah. Let me go back to this. Let me go back to the slide, to the part where I should talk about resumes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Oh, so when does the resume usually start?
Hello. I think someone is saying something, but I didn't hear it clearly.
Hello?
Yes.
When does the resume usually start?
It starts very soon. We are going to split into groups for the review. The meeting host is going to split us up into breakout rooms for the review to start. Yeah. In the meantime, if you haven't submitted your resume, please do so. So we mentioned this earlier on about resume reviews. When they say keep your resume clean, what it means is don't put everything on there, but keep a master list of all your achievements. A lot of people put everything on their resume and it clutters it up. When you have to put only the things that matter, when you have to put only a few things, let's say the top three items for every section, it forces you to, when you have to keep it short, it forces you to prioritize the things that really, really matter. When you try to put in everything there, it introduces things that weaken your resume. It also means that your resume should be one page. I mean, different people have different opinions on how long the resume should be, but you have to realize that reviewers spend only 6 seconds looking at your resume. 6 seconds on average. If you have more than 2 pages, whatever is on the second page, they will not see. There is no point then in doing it. If they are not going to see what's on the second page, there really is no point. Um, so if you force yourself to write one page, it would again force you to prioritize the things that really matter. Make the resume short and sweet and strong. Short, sweet, and strong. It also means that things like objective statement and those long descriptions of yourself are not really relevant. Those are good for the actual interview itself. When you're at the interview, you should have this written down in your big master list of achievements. You can now, recite how good and a great person and a skilled person you are. In your resume, you want the objective, strong points to speak for themselves. That's what simple, professional, and clean, is saying. Um, Another thing, it's things when you have to keep it simple and clean, you may have to leave out short-term jobs that don't add value. If you worked as a server for a month at a restaurant, it may not be worth it. What may be worth it is that you contributed to an open source project for 6 months, or something like that. Um, so prioritize the longer things than the shorter things. Um, so I just got a think that the meeting room is already, and when we come back here, I can go ahead and expand more on this. All right, guys.
Okay, so you all should have received the invite for the breakout rooms. Please give me a thumbs up if you have received the invite.
I see that I'm waiting to be assigned.
Okay, let's see. Is that um All right. Hi, Ellie. I know you were interested in sharing the breakout room. I mean, sending your resume in. Have you
Yes,
done that?
I am trying to upload it, and at the same time, I don't see the prompt for the breakout room too. Sorry.
Yeah, I haven't assigned your breakout room yet because your name you haven't uploaded your resume. So,
Oh,
Ellie and I, if you whenever you upload your resume, just let me know and I'll assign you into breakout rooms.
sure. Sorry, I am trying to figure out how to upload it on like Google Drive, and then I'll share the link soon.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.